welcome to another edition of CrossTalk. My name is Kevin Tocci, and I'll be joining you for the next 30 minutes. And of course, this isn't a regular CrossTalk. This is the 7th Plymouth District edition. I dare you to say that 5 times fast. It's really hard just to say it normally. And of course, it features the one and only State Representative Alyson Sullivan, who is our reoccurring guest. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of course, the 7th Plymouth District is Abington, East Bridgewater, and Whitman, and we talk about some of the things that the state representative is doing, and you've been quite busy since the last time we talked.
I have. It's been a very busy, what has it been, 2 months now since the last time we spoke?
Yep.
So we had the bill filing, I think it was right after the bill filing session that I came in.
Yep.
So we've had the budget.
Yeah, you had the family and chamber, because I get my notes from the last time you were here. Just so I can I can know as to some of the things we talked about, so there's not a redundancy.
Definitely, yeah. So we had the budget debate, and I gave my maiden speech. Yeah. So some things have been happening, obviously, and then also events within the district.
And these are all things that we are going to talk about. I think I want to start first, though, as to one of our local access centers. You actually did a 2-part series called Down Addiction Avenue.
Yes.
What was that about? What was that program about?
So Chief Allen in the East Bridgewater community has a great program going on, and he reached out to both my sister and I. My sister works she's an executive director for the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Council for the governor and lieutenant governor, and I recently disclosed how I am a survivor of domestic violence, and Chief asked me if I'd be willing to speak on it. And I told him, of course. I think it's time that we change the narrative, we change the negative stigma that goes along with being a survivor.
And this program saw a significant amount of press. How does that make you feel, knowing that the show was so well received?
It makes me feel good that there's the awareness, that people are talking about it, that, whether or not you had a viewpoint on what a victim would look like, I hopefully changed that idea. I stress the fact that I came from a very loving home and a sturdy home at that, and that it can happen to anybody, that it doesn't discriminate, and that also an abuser doesn't have a look either, that it can be someone living right next door to you, or it could be the monster that's down the street. I mean, it doesn't discriminate on that end either.
Do you think that people understand to be what it's like to be in such a situation, whether it's dealing with substance or domestic abuse?
Like, understand the sense of what it's like to be a victim?
To be a victim, to be a part of it in a situation, and try to comprehend that this is your way of life, where maybe you might want to work things out, but the individual that you're with either needs help themselves and doesn't realize what they're doing to the victim per se.
So I think there's definitely multiple different viewpoints on a victim and domestic violence, and even someone suffering from a substance use disorder. I think a lot of things is that people assume that you're choosing to stay or choosing to do those things. I had people say to me, "Why didn't you just leave?" And I left on multiple occasions. It's hard to explain, because I think there's some people that know the ins and outs of domestic violence and understand that when you're a victim of domestic violence, it's not a quick fix. It's not something that, even when my abuser was arrested and put to in jail and sentenced in the criminal court system, I still had years and years of healing to do. And I think that the more awareness we bring to that, the better it is for other survivors and other victims.
And it isn't necessarily just physical abuse. There's so many different elements to it, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it didn't start out physical. It started out very much mental and emotional, and then it became very severely physical. I say that it's a blessing that I'm sitting in front of you at times, because there were moments where I actually thought that this might be the last. And I wish that I told my mom and dad one last time that I loved them, and, that sort of thing. But I survived it. I'm here. And now I'm serving the 7th Plymouth District as their state representative. And I recently spoke at a spring gala for domestic violence awareness. The Family and Community Resources in Brockton put it on I think it was Thorny Lee in Brockton. And they asked me to speak. And as I was writing my speech, I thought about it, and it didn't occur to me, I think, until that very moment that 10 years to the day, I was sworn into office. So it was very moving to me because for so long, January 1st and January 2nd were such a hard time in my life and a difficult time. And on January 2nd of this year, I was sworn in as the state representative, so 10 years later.
It's interesting you talk about writing speeches. Just a few weeks ago, the House had their discussion and debate for fiscal 2020. You actually took to the podium. You had another speech.
I did.
Talking a little bit about consolidating a consolidated amendment.
Correct.
Talk to us about that.
So the amendment focused in on the opioid crisis and recovery programs and prevention programs, and it also touched on resources to domestic violence and sexual violence. Me being a survivor, I thought it was almost like the perfect moment to do your maiden speech. And everyone talks about they wait for that perfect moment. Mine kind of just fell in my lap.
It was organic.
It was. And, the first part of my speech was about the opioid crisis and a young man in Abington who was my little brother's best friend, and I was his sister's best friend. And
his name was?
Christian.
Yep.
And he is, an amazing soul. And I reached out to his mother and I asked if she'd be okay with me doing my maiden speech and talking about Christian. And she loved every second of it. And she thanked me for keeping his name alive and bringing awareness.
Yeah, you were up at that podium for nearly 6 minutes.
Oh, gosh.
What was it like writing the speech, and what was it like at the conclusion? Because you received a warm applause.
I did. So this is when I wish my aide was here. So Curtis, God love him.
Great guy.
He is. So Wednesday morning at 3 a.m., I woke up and decided that I was going to do my maiden speech that day. And I knew what I was going to do it on. I actually had it sounds weird, but a dream almost about it. And I quickly jotted down some notes, sent myself an email at 3 a.m., went back to sleep, woke up, went to work and started typing up my maiden speech. And all day I practiced it. I kind of etched a few things out, re-edited it, redid it, re-practiced it. And by I think it was almost 9 o'clock at night, I gave my maiden speech. So it was very much a roller coaster that day of all emotions.
Yeah, it sounded as though it was well written.
Yes.
And it seemed as though you really had it committed because you were finding a way. When someone is giving a speech, it's important to engage the audience. You did that quite well.
Yes, yeah. So I actually have to thank Senator Timilty for that. When I told him I was doing my maiden speech, he hosted me in the Senate chamber to really practice it in the sense of standing at a podium, standing up and addressing a crowd. It wasn't nearly as filled as what it was on the House floor, but the response I received after finishing that speech was indescribable. It was kind of like an eerie feeling because halfway through the speech, you can just hear, a pin drop. It was almost like everybody, all eyes were on me. And I had my colleagues, shake my hand, give me hugs, and whisper in my ear that either them themselves are survivors or they know somebody that is a survivor, thanked me continuously because they have daughters or sisters. And then I also, the after effect of it too, I had and received so many compliments from my speech and how compelling it was.
So how did the amendment do? Did it pass? Is this something that's still pending? What's going on?
So the consolidated amendment did pass, and one of the things that was in that amendment was this healthy relationships incentive that is bringing awareness to more of the younger generation, both on sexual and domestic violence, but also the opioid crisis and things on that nature, and how to have those healthy relationships, and not necessarily in the sense of a boyfriend-girlfriend or an intimate relationship, but just friends as well, and to stop the bullying that goes on and to address when there are situations of kids misbehaving, I guess you could say, but really driving in on that healthy relationship and what it means for themselves individually and as a community.
So what was it like going through your very first budget discussion and debate? What was that like?
It was great. You know, I think we roughly filed about 10 amendments, I want to say. Obviously, not all of them got through, which is expected. But we were able to secure some funding for both Abington and East Bridgewater as a direct amendment for the community. Abington, we were able to receive $30,000 for a study to do a fire station, centralized fire station. Abington's looking at a situation with the expansion of Route 18. Their firehouse, their main firehouse that they use, it might be unusable. And then also in East Bridgewater at a middle school, we received about $20,000 to update the communication system out of that middle school. So it's more of like a public safety issue that was going on there. So.
And what's that like to know that when you are able to see success like that?
I mean, it's great. You just wish that you could have more success. You know, there's a lot that needs to be done within the district, but also across the Commonwealth. But seeing the way that they balance a 47, I think it was 43 or 42.7, almost a $43 billion budget, it's incredible.
Right. Right. B with $1 billion, yes.
Yes, yeah, a pretty high budget.
Yeah.
You know, the Ways and Means chair, the gentleman from Boston, was great. He sat down with us prior to the budget process. We each had an individual meeting with him. We discussed our top priorities. We were able to advocate on that level, on a very personal, intimate level like that. And then also in the House budget debate came up in that week, we were able to kind of go in the room and really advocate on behalf of our communities. And there's a lot of communities that need funding for certain things, but I went to those meetings in hopes that we were able to receive as much funding as we could for the 7th Plymouth District.
The one thing that I've noted is that you work really, really well with a lot of your South Shore colleagues,
Yes.
legislators. I've seen you with Representative Michelle Dubois.
Yep.
I've seen you with Kathy Lenatra.
Yes.
I've seen you with Josh Cutler.
Yep.
I've seen you with Dave DeCoste. What's it like to be able, talk to me about your natural ability to be able to work with some of these legislators, and not only, some of them are veterans and give you little tips going, hey, if you're looking to try to do this or get this is what you should try to do and keep in mind.
So I think it's important to have those relationships, building on those relationships at the State House, because, you know, it takes a village. And I think with the South Shore community, we all have our priorities within the South Shore itself. So I think the delegation that the South Shore has is a great delegation, and we do actually meet and discuss our priorities within the South Shore. But it's important. It's important to have those relationships. It's important to have those communication abilities, and to really kind of join forces at getting things done and being able to deliver to the district.
Now, working on a budget isn't the primary thing that you do, the only thing that you do, but I know you usually, from time to time, probably a couple times a week, you're welcoming different groups up, or you're participating in groups that are coming up for the day. Anything that that sticks out in your memory that you've had to, whether, I know the firefighters were up not too long ago.
Yep.
You've had a bunch of different groups that have been up.
So we've had so many groups.
Probably lost track of half of them.
I'm trying to keep track, that's for sure. You know, I had individual families come up to take a tour of the State House, and then also groups. We had, there was, and I'm blanking on the actual title, but we had Christy Coombs from Abington, who is a widow from 9/11.
Yep.
And she does a lot of the work with the families that lost somebody from 9/11.
The Jeffrey Coombs
Memorial. Yep. So we had, I actually was able to bump into them. We had, I think it was probably about 8 young kids come up, and it was, you know, bring your kid to work day. And the mothers that brought their children up, and they lost their fathers from the war after 9/11. And I mean, they were great. So we gave them a little tour of the House chamber. They got to sit in the seats at the House chamber, and then they also got to ask us questions. So I kind of stuck around for that, because I have a soft spot for little kids. And one of them asked me, you know, why I decided to run for office and what kind of sparked in my head. So it was pretty cool, yeah.
Do you kind of feel as though you're when you're asked that is they're looking up to you, and that you're hopefully you're helping to,
Future
set
leaders.
the path of these
Yeah.
future leaders going, I remember Representative Sullivan.
Yeah, I hope because I know that, going through the campaign, I heard different people say to me, like, oh, your father did this, your father did that. And the one thing that I hope is that somebody says that about me, that I help somebody, that even if I make an impact, just even if it's a small impact. So these kids the young ladies, they were super excited, the fact that a female was standing in front of them as a state representative representing my communities. One of the girls actually sat at my desk and she got all excited. She's like, "This is your desk." So at the House chamber floor. So I think it's important. It's important to show young minds that they have the ability to be in my shoes one day.
It's interesting because we're connected on social media, and I think I teased yourself and Representative Cutler. You had a good friend of mine, Peter Brown, who was there.
Yes.
Peter Brown is, when you talk about folks who are consummate volunteers in the community, Peter Brown is that individual. And I'm like, hey, how did he get on the floor? You're like, oh, yeah, we'll have you out one day too. But it's great to see our legislators, our elected leaders, interacting with folks who are very important in the common thread of our communities.
Definitely. I think, we're there because of those people. And the work that they're doing on the ground and facilitating that to us is important. And having, like I said, those working relationships with people that are very much here day in and day out. Unfortunately, we can't be in the district 24/7, that there are times that we have to be at the State House. So having those people and those relationships is very important to our success as well.
So we talk on a grander scale. We talk about the state budget. You recently attended, I think, your very first town meeting in Whitman.
Yes.
What was that like? Because that atmosphere was interesting that evening.
It definitely was. So I sat, quietly in the visitors area with some of the firefighters in the district and just listened. So I did shake a few hands, people that I did see there. We ended up bumping into each other. But Abington is very much old school. We do not have those electronic devices. So I know that there was kind of polls going around whether or not to have them or to not have them and the efficiency of them. But, it's very similar to what we do up at the State House, where it's the electronic, you vote yes or no, and then you figure out by the red or the greens on the board.
Right.
But it was very much of an experience for me.
Yeah.
Whitman, it was my first time as a state rep going to a town meeting. But I think the town is pretty happy with the results that came from that meeting and then going forward to the next meeting.
I know probably the one thing that they kept echoing was their concerns about having enough funding for the schools and for education. Mm-hmm. Do you think, do people understand what's going on? Especially knowing that this administration, the Baker-Polito administration, over the past 5 years, has put a little more than $500 million into Chapter 70 funds.
Right. I think that's one of the biggest priorities that is going forward for everybody at the State House, whether you're in the governor's office, in the House of Reps, or in the Senate. It's a very much big priority for a lot of us. I know that I filed an amendment to increase the Chapter 70 budget by $100 million. Unfortunately, I did not get that amendment, but I did advocate because it is very important and it's crucial to the communities like Whitman, where a lot of it is on the backs of the taxpayers here in the town. So it is important that we continue to improve on Chapter 70 to make sure that the communities are getting their fair share.
You're also very busy attending events, getting out and about. We talked about Whitman Town Meeting. You also mentioned about the Domestic Violence Spring Gala.
Yep.
I think I even saw you out and about in East Bridgewater for their annual town election. I don't know if you were there.
Yes, I did. Yep. I stopped by, got to congratulate a few of the people, wish them well on the town election. So I got to see Dave Sheedy. Got to hang out with him for a little bit. It's always great to see him. So.
And then I think you also attended the Abington Candidates Forum.
Yes, I was able.
What's that like to be an elected official and kind of sit back and kind of watch as folks discussing the issues.
Well, at least I don't have to stress being the one in front of everyone. I think it's important. It's important to listen to what's going on. Like I said, I can't be in Abington 24/7 and know what is the individual needs of the town. So listening to the selectmen debate, listening to the even down to the Board of Health and listening to what their intentions are going forward is very important. And to continue those, like I keep going back to, those working relationships with people. And I think it's very important to have those relationships within each town.
I think the one thing you and I didn't talk about last time you were here, and it probably took place, you actually probably marched in your first parade as right at the Abington St. Patty's Day parade.
It was, yeah.
What was that like?
It was awesome. Yeah, I had my niece and nephew there. We had our green sweatshirts on, handing out candy, and wow, do we run out of candy by the end of that parade. We decided that next year we're going to kind of tackle the candy situation a little differently. But it was awesome. It was. I walked with my volunteers. I didn't walk at the front. I know some people do walk at the front as the elected officials, but I think it was important to kind of walk with the people that were walking for me.
Talked a little bit earlier on in regards to being an advocate when it comes to domestic violence. I know that there was a big motorcycle ride not too long ago. I want to say maybe a week, either this past weekend or the weekend prior.
Yes.
For Shane and Minnie Warner. Talk to me about appearing at an event like that. It was, I think, a motorcycle ride,
It
and
was.
at least being there to show support as an elected official.
So I met her fiance, John, probably right after I got elected with Josh Cutler. And the work that he's been doing going forward after such a horrific tragedy of losing his fiance in such a way is admirable. Him having that courage and finding that courage to continue bringing awareness and not letting, such a horrific event take a toll on him the way that it could have. It was moving. It was very moving to see how many people came out and supported. I mean, the different patches we saw, there was American Infidels, there was other veterans that were there. There was another motorcycle group that I didn't realize what they did, but what they do is they travel along funeral processions and they block the traffic so that the funeral procession can stay intact, which I think is very important because, the way that people don't pay attention sometimes when they're driving and you cut off a funeral procession, it sometimes puts that family in an anxious situation. So the work that they do, and then also the amount of people that came out to support. I wish I had my motorcycle ready. Just kidding, I do not ride. I do not have a motorcycle, but seeing all the people that were there was great. The work that they put into it, and then seeing the success that came from it. They did have their white ribbon ceremony that Thursday prior, and I was able to attend that and thank everybody for their support and continuing support to raise awareness for domestic violence. And the men and women in that room at the VFW on the Thursday before took the pledge to stand up against domestic violence. So it was nice. It was nice to see that.
And I know you also visited the VOTEC, South Shore VOTEC, which serves 8 communities, and I believe Whitman and Abington are 2 communities in your district that actually have students that go there.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was cool. I've never been in South Shore VOTEC. So being able to see what they do within the high school was amazing. I didn't realize that they have people from the outside come in and get their oil changed, how the students will go out and do repairs to homes. I mean, things that I didn't know that was occurring in our back door pretty much. So it was great to see that.
And they got a restaurant, the Brass Lantern.
I know, but it was closed the day I went, so I wasn't able to enjoy any of the food, so.
Just something, and I don't know if Mom would allow this at the Thanksgiving dinner table, but I believe that you can order a pies for Thanksgiving. So maybe you can surprise him, Mom.
Yeah.
A couple less pies that you have to worry about making. Kids do a great job. I hear that. But you got to get your order in early.
Should I order now?
You might want to. Last thing I think we might want to mention, unless there's any other ones on your list, is the cleanup of Ames Knoll, the park.
Yeah.
What's that like?
So I was on the wood chipper.
Really?
Yeah.
See if I can get all of them?
It was. I do. I didn't lose any of them. It was the day of the Abington election. It was Park Serve Day. So DCR came out with some of their resources, and then the town of Abington really showed up that day Rick Collins did a great job on organizing the event and getting volunteers. I know that there were a few, the troop was there, the scouts were there, and then other elected officials within Abington. And then I even got my dad to come out and help.
Did ya?
Yeah, so both of us had wood chips, I think, head to toe on us because we were both on the wood chipper. So we made tremendous progress. We're still going to continue going forward, cleaning up the park and kind of hopefully bring more resources to Ames Knoll. It's such a beautiful park.
It's a fantastic park.
It is.
Especially if you have a puppy.
Yeah, yeah.
Bring it down.
Just make sure you clean up after the puppy.
But a lot of people don't do that. You
No.
you should do that. I mean, we have a bylaw here at Whitman, but a lot of times we see people will walk around our perimeter, let the dog do its business, and then walk off. Go, what are you doing?
Yeah, unfortunately.
People will be people.
Yes.
Any event that I haven't mentioned, but you want to make sure you take a moment to recognize, or any events that might be coming up that you're looking forward to attending?
So I know that there's going to be a scout recognized. He'll be coming Eagle Scout ceremony. I just got the invitation in the mail. And then I'm trying to think what else is coming up. There's probably a few things coming up over the summer. Memorial Day is coming up, so we'll have Memorial Day in the district. So
Graduations? Will you attend any graduations?
Yeah, graduations. Yeah, I mean, I have graduation next Friday. So
congratulations.
Yeah. So I'm excited to be able to put that behind me.
Well, people don't realize how much, I mean, you, through the campaign the past couple of years, you've been busy between working in the district attorney's office
No,
or,
so I worked
for the state.
Yeah, I worked for the state. I worked in administration and finance.
Plus, you were educating yourself.
Yeah, I was in law school, so I was taking 4 classes at night.
Graduate degree?
Yeah. So it'll be very, very nice to. So grades came out yesterday, and I'm good to go. I'm able to graduate, so I'm happy about that.
Very, very nice.
Yes.
If folks want to find out what's going on, do you have a number or a way for them to contact you up at the State House?
Yeah, our number is 617-722-2014. We're room 39 up at the State House, so come up and visit. We're there.
Excellent.
Be more than happy to bring you to the chamber floor.
I can't wait.
Or anybody that's listening.
Well,
so.
again, we definitely want to do a day up on the hill.
Yeah.
And it might be a series of days where we'll follow you, and then we'll dedicate a day for Rep. Cutler.
Yeah.
And heck, maybe we'll squeeze in Senator Brady too, for the heck of it.
There you go.
know.
Yeah. The Senate chamber is pretty. Have you seen it?
No.
It's really nice. They did renovations to it. So
Well, there's not many of them, right? There's
know.
only like 40, 42
Yeah,
of them?
yeah.
Not many.
I know. They have a very smaller crowd than us.
Yeah, it's not like, almost 200 like
Yeah.
you guys have.
Yep.
So, well, listen, I want to thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
And doing another program. We'll look forward to having you back in
Yes.
very soon.
I look forward to it.
And I want to thank you for tuning in. Again, it's very important to know what's going on in your community and the folks that serve. And we're fortunate that our representatives, our legislators up at the State House are kind enough to sit down and chat with us on a regular basis. If you have any comments or questions in regards to programs that we do here, info@whca.tv is the best way. And until next time, have a good day.